Hi, neighborhood mystics. What's the one question you should never ask in a tarot reading? The question is, am I right? If you want to choke off your readings in a quick hurry, ask yourself that question while you're doing a reading. Am I right? And this counts as whether you're reading for yourself or for somebody else. So Carol sent in a question. Well, actually, she responded to the last video in YouTube, I believe, with the comment, how do you know if you're right on your readings? So Carol, this is your answer. You don't know. And like I said, if you want to cut off your reading at the knees, be asking yourself during the reading. Now this, I'm talking about from the perspective of being the reader. So if you're reading for yourself or you're reading for others. And there are several ways to answer this question, how do you know if you're right? The first one is you don't know. You just don't know because everything's relative. So there is no absolute truth. So, for example, think of an incident when you were a kid and you wanted to do something and your parents said, don't do that, don't do that. And somehow you managed to do that thing. You know, they said, don't climb that tree in the front yard and try to get on the roof. And so you tried to climb the tree and you climbed the tree and you tried to get on the roof and you fell down. Okay, in the moment when your parents said, don't climb that tree and try to get on the roof, you're thinking, they're wrong and I'm right. I can climb that tree and get on the roof and that would be fun. I'm right. But after you climbed the tree and tried to get on the roof and you fell down, you think, maybe I wasn't right. Maybe they were right. So that's all I'm saying with it. It's that it's relative. You know, it's relative to the time. It's relative to the person. It's relative to the point of view. So when you're giving readings, I wouldn't get too hung up on, you know, is this information I'm giving out right? Okay. Oftentimes people will give you feedback. That's nice if they do. Sometimes they're not. They don't give you feedback and they just politely sit there. You know, which kind of gets me into the part about how people can block you during readings. But we'll get to that at a later point. So do not, under any circumstances, start thinking about, is this really right? Am I giving out the right information? Is this accurate information? Does it really line up with their experience? Is this really what's going to happen? Is this really what happened in the past? You just deliver the message. That's what you do as a reader, is you deliver the message. And for me, reading it's a very spontaneous, in the moment experience. So that's why when I do readings for the weekly reading and stuff, I like to do them live and kind of experience the cards with you, because it's you know what I mean? It's a real-time experience giving a reading, but sometimes it doesn't work out that way. But that's part one. Okay, so now we get into the fate and free will argument. So this is an age-old argument. It's been going on for millennia. Is everything fated, or do we have free will? So once again, this comes into play during readings, because are you telling somebody that something is definitely going to happen and there's nothing they can do about it? Or do they have free will to kind of adjust in the stream of things and change the outcome? So once again, it's kind of like what I was saying earlier about things being relative. You know, if I tell you that tomorrow morning when you pull into work and you get out of your car and you try to step up over the curb to get to the front door, you're going to fall over and break your wrist. Okay. So the next day when you get to work, you don't step up over the curb, you walk up the handicapped ramp, and you don't fall and you don't break your wrist. okay, was I wrong? Was I right? If you had tried to step over the curb, would you have fallen and broken your wrist? We don't know. We'll never know. That's that's the whole thing. There's no way to know. There's no way to know. So, the bottom line is that your life is a creation in the moment. And that sounds very trite, but it really is true. So you're constantly creating your life from moment to moment. So you can't get caught up in like, what should I do next? What's the right thing to do here? Or is that person right about my trajectory? Are they right about my boss? And then are they right about my decisions? You're getting stuck in your mind when you start thinking those kinds of things. So you need to kind of avoid that. You can ask yourself, what does my heart say? How do I feel about that? Like I was talking to my son one day, and he was talking about, somebody was asking him what his experience was like when we lived in Arizona, and he just got all stuck in his head and he was spinning around and he didn't know how to ask the question. And I said, how did you feel when you were in Arizona? And suddenly he had all kinds of things to say about living in Arizona and going fishing and this and that and the other. And I said, you notice how when I changed the question, I got you out of your head and more into your body and more into your heart, and you were able to answer the question. You were able to answer the question with actual facts, but it's like it was your heart and how you felt about it that got you to that spot. Okay, so now we've been talking about not getting caught up in are you right? So then I want to talk a little bit about, a lot of times people will ask kind of cryptic or broad questions, and as long as they're in good spirits with their question, it's a good spirited question, they're not trying to hide from me, I'll answer the question. Like, I've had people say, is it worth it? Did I do the right thing? And I usually don't even like those questions, but you can tell when the person asks the question if they're in a good spirit with that question or not. Which kind of brings me to the point that people can definitely block you from reading them, and that is what it is. And so you may not be right about anything when they do that, but they have to give you permission, not just verbally on the surface. They have to actually open up to you to allow you to read for them. So, I mean, if they don't, then that's their problem. But back to what I was saying, when people will ask like a kind of a broad cryptic question like, is it going to work out, or did I make the right move and they're in the right spirit? I will answer it. And you can, because with tarot cards, you can definitely see the environment and kind of like all the pieces of the situation and of what's going on. So I can be like, yeah, if your goal was X, then you did the right thing. If your goal is not X, then maybe you didn't do the right thing, or something like that. Because I can see how it's moving, the trajectory of the situation and of events. So I'm like, yeah, if you're trying to get this, yeah. If you're trying to get that, then no. And then this brings me up to an interesting, like I said, people can block you. And so it doesn't happen a lot, but once in a while I will get somebody who will ask me a totally off the wall question, and they're just being facetious. And they don't really want a reading. They don't believe in readings. And it's because I do a lot of events, so people get it for free because they wouldn't pay if they don't really want a reading. So, but they come and they ask me some facetious question. And, the way that works is if you're expecting a fake reading, you're going to get a fake reading. And I was listening to a podcast with Chip Coffey, and he was talking about that. And he was very adamant, and because he has a lot of people that are really hounding him and stuff. And he said, that's the thing. If you come to me and you're expecting a fake reading, you're going to get a fake reading. And if you're wondering about that reading, whether I gave you a fake reading or not, you'll never know. So that's kind of like that fate and free will thing. It's like you'll never know. You know what I mean? So that you have to come into it with a good spirit, with a good intention. Otherwise, am I giving you a fake reading? Is what I'm saying really true? You don't know. Now, let me flip it and say, when you're on the side of being read for, you can definitely tell if what you're being told is right. And what you're going to do is you're going to see if it resonates with you. So once again, you drop into your body, you drop into your heart, and you go, how do I feel about this? What does my heart say? What does my gut say? What does my intuition say? So if somebody's telling you something that's completely off, you're going to get signals and you're going to be like, I don't know, and you're going to feel it. You will literally feel it. And if something doesn't fit and it's not right, then don't take it. It's that simple. Just leave it there and walk away. And you can be polite to the person. You don't have to say anything. But that's what I'm saying. You have a choice of whose advice you take, whether it's for tarot reader or your best friend or some dude on the radio or whatever. You have a choice. You don't have to do anything that anybody tells you. You are able to make decisions for yourself. And the best way to do it is, like I said, is you need to check in with however you do that, however you check in with yourself and see if it resonates and if it feels right. For example, one time, a long time ago, I went to a reader, and it was the first time I saw her. And the first thing she said to me when I walked in the door and sat down and said, I'm going up on my rates, so make sure you tell your friends. And so that was like immediate red flag, because I'm thinking, I don't even know you. I've never had a reading by you. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to recommend you to anybody, and you're already telling me to tell my friends about you going up on your rates. Then the next thing out of her mouth was, you were abused as a child. And I was like, once again, didn't resonate. And I'm like, well, no. And then she had started going through a line of things like this, that, this, the other. And she's like, well, what you had to say wasn't appreciated. And I'm like, well, that's true. And she goes, well, that's abuse. That's abuse. So once again, it didn't really resonate with me, didn't really fit. I'm like, okay, yeah, so my parents thought what I had to say wasn't that important, but I didn't feel abused by it, And then the next thing she said is, somebody in your family is going to die. Whenever anyone tells you somebody's going to die, you just need to run. I mean, because it's just plainly unethical. It's plain, because what are you going to do with that information? What constructive purpose can giving someone that information or not do? Regardless of whether that's even possible. I'm just saying, why would you tell somebody that? It's not productive. It's not helpful. Then the next thing she said is, your husband's cheating on you. And I was like, I don't think so. And so she's like, oh, let me check the cards. And she's like, no, he's not. So that's what I'm saying. You're going to get red flags. If you're getting a reading that is not landing, you're going to get red flags and you're going to know it. And there's no reason that you should pick up that information and take it with you at the end of the reading. So that's my point about that. Okay, last point. When you're reading for yourself, it can be difficult to know if you're right, or if you're seeing what you want to see, or if you're stuck in your head, or things like that, because it's yourself. So it's going through all of your own filters, and you have certain expectations, and you know what I mean. So it's just more difficult to read for yourself, but it's not impossible. So I'm going to show you a little trick I do when I want to read for myself. This is what I do. Okay, you're going to need at least 3 envelopes. And then you're going to need some paper to write some questions down. And then, of course, you're going to need your tarot cards. So what you do is you need to come up with at least 3 questions. You can do more, but it needs to be at least 3. And so you have the question that you really want to know in there. And then, at least 2 other questions. And they need to be real questions. They can't be, once again, like going back to this thing, when people ask me absurd questions, they're going to get absurd answers. So if you're asking absurd questions or things that you really don't care about, you're not going to get accurate answers, and so it's not going to work for this exercise. So you need to come up with 3 questions that that you really would like to know or would like insight on. Okay, so you write them down on your paper. Write them down, okay? And you will randomly put them in an envelope, okay? I'm putting it in an envelope, okay? So you put that in the envelope and you don't look at it, okay? So you can fold up the paper first, put it in there, don't look at it. And then you randomly pick a card and you put it in there and you don't look at it. And you close up the envelope. And so there you go. And you can label them like 1, 2, and 3 because you're going to go through and answer them. And so if you don't want to mix them up, or if you just have them laid out on the table so you know which is which, but you could actually label the envelopes. So once again, I would have a question. I would randomly pick a tarot card. I'm not going to look at the question or the card. I'm going to put it in one of these envelopes. Here I go. I'm putting it in an envelope. Okay, I close up the envelope. I put it aside. And then, like I said, you can label them. I just dropped my other cards, but it's okay. All right. So then what you do is, I'm just going to get rid of this other piece of paper. Okay. What you do is you shuffle up these envelopes, okay? You shuffle them up so you don't know what question is in what envelope. You don't have any idea what tarot card is in this envelope. You shuffle them up. Then you take out one, and what I personally do is I lay my hand on it for a while. I lay my hand on it, and I can close my eyes and I can get images, and then I write them down. Or if you want to just like talk into a recording device, you can do that. But I recommend either writing it down or doing the recording device, not just trying to hold it all in your head. So you write it down or you record it and you're like, okay, this is what this is what I'm seeing, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm hearing, all these kind of things. I feel like this, I feel like this is, you can ask yourself things like hot and cold, or any kinds of things that may tip you off, like, you know what I mean, or big or small, you know what I mean, that's going to, like, give you some kind of directionality or some kind of value to it. You know what I'm saying? Or it could be colors, like black or white, but you need to know what those things mean to you before you do it. But you can definitely do that. And so then you do it for all 3 envelopes. And then you have things either written down or recorded about each one. And so then after you're done, then you pull it out and you have your card and your question. And you go, oh, this was envelope 2. So this was the answer to what should I do about my son who's being very defiant. And you go, oh, this is what I'm going to do. This is my message. This is what I got. And one thing about this is what's interesting to me is a lot of times I'll get details of the card in what I'm getting. Like a lot of times like I have cards where people are on water or in water. I'm like, oh, there's a boat and water and stuff, and it'll be on the card. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, that's one way you can read for yourself, because that way you're not filtering anything, you're not spinning anything, you're not saying what you want to hear per se, because you've got several questions in there, so you don't really know which one you're answering when you're answering it. So those are my tips about how do you know you're right. So if you have a question about tarot, astrology, or any of the intuitive arts, put it in the comments. Email it to me at dancingtarot@gmail.com. Go on my website, fill out a contact form, say I have a question. Send it in, and I'll make a video about it. So have a great week ahead. Hope this helped. See you next time.